very pertinent topic which I selected is how do we deal with cybersecurity in the future of 2020 in context of India, right? So we'll talk about more in next 15 minutes as to what is going to be the task in front of us as we move on to manage our SOC and the cybersecurity infrastructure from that perspective. So let's move on to the first important, the change which is happening, we are all witnessing is that India is becoming digitally smart. And why I'm saying so is because if you see the progress in last so many years which we have done in terms of the smart cities, that almost 100 smart cities have been approved and is already in process of rolling out. Close to $14 billion is being assigned to that as per the ministry. So that's going to be the future of India, where you will have everything connected, and that's what is going to be the soft target for cybersecurity. Now, before we get into what will be the nuances of the cybersecurity, what we'll go through, let's have an idea of as to what is in front of us. So there are three parallel tracks which is changing in front of us. The first is obviously the use of data, the use of systems, the connected systems are increasing by the day. At the same time, we are seeing a lot of changes in the way cyber attacks are happening on this infrastructure. Starting from the old days of viruses and worms, it's already moved to the very advanced sophisticated attacks targeting ICS, industrial control systems, power systems, and manufacturing facilities. So that is the movement on the cyber landscape point of view. The other very important thing is that what was used to be data islands of ICS, industrial control system, in power sector, in manufacturing, in industry, are now connecting together for to harness the power of data, wherein earlier they used to be air gap, now they started connecting back to the IT system, and with now more and more IoT coming into picture, they're also connecting to the internet and cloud. So what was the traditional security fundamental, that we have a separate physical network for ICS systems, is now going to be connected with IoTs and everything, and we will have a very different challenge in front of us, because we all are very, very well versed with the attacks happening on IT network. We know what is the impact of that on the IT network at large, whether the data get lost or data theft or probably financial fraud or whatever. But in this case, the impact of an attack is not going to limit itself to a digital or logical asset. It is going to be probably going to the next level, wherein the physical damage will be the part of cyber attack. They can instill that kind of damage because the attack will be on the industrial control systems and things. So this is what is a context with which we have to look at everything what we are looking at. In our research, in our way we find when we do some assessments, that we are already seeing a lot of traffic getting generated for scanning these protocols and application of ICS, even on the normal IT environment. So that means that hackers are really active in identifying those vulnerabilities and figuring out the ways to get into those kind of network, which is earlier used to be secured by means of air gap. Now let's see, is this a new thing in front of us as an industry, as people sitting from my fraternity? It is actually not new. We have seen similar kind of challenges back in 2000, when the telephony protocols and applications were getting converged with IP. Those were the time of X.25, X.28 communication was big thing. Nobody knew exactly what it was when it was converging with IP, what will be the attack vector on them. But as the time progressed, we all learned, and we have now today complete converged scenario in terms of telephony. So we have seen this happening in the past, and we shall actually go through this as well when we work together this thing. So now let's see what is that industrial revolution. So it is not only about why I use the example of smart city, because it is not one component. When a lot of components comes together, it makes a smart city, whether it's health, power, traffic system, and there's so many other things which smart homes, everything comes together, smart metering, they all come together and make the city a smart, digitally smart city. So it has everything connected, and hence everything is a target. So that is what should be the next course of discussion among all the forums, that how do we go about securing these, this new scenario, and what is changing under us. That's very, very important. So let's see what is the important concept which we must understand. So if you see in this diagram that if we look below, on which the entire thing is riding, is basically on TCP/IP, and there are a lot of other protocols, which is inherently not designed for security. When the computer revolution happened, we all knew that TCP/IP was not designed with security in mind. With new protocols, with IoT and ICS systems, these protocols also not designed keeping security in mind. So that is the challenge number one, which we need to look at, that what application, what protocols we are going to run this entire smart cities and smart everything possibly running on. Then if you see what is looking back or behind, there are laws which is, in terms of policies and laws, they're still not backing us completely, right? They're not still aligned to what can happen. There are a lot of discussions which is happening around what should be termed as cyber war, what should be laws and policies around it. So like in any other world, we are still struggling to have a proper laws and policies which will back us up when we really figure out the attackers and defenders and do that. Now if you see, look across, what's happening is basically the human capital is the weakest link. Today, when we meet our customers almost on everyday basis, if there's one challenge which is common across, whether it is system integrator or an end customer, is the human skill. We do not have enough people who are skilled, who can man our security operations center, who have sufficient skills available. Today, what is happening is that either we have a red skills available, the people who know how to probably exploit vulnerability in hack, or else we have a blue skills available, where the people know how to configure the security controls. But when we sit in security operations center, we need a combination of both. Because you need to think like a hacker, but know how to tune your devices to really protect the new kind of an attack. When we have seen invariably, whenever the attack happens in the security operations center, the engineers who are sitting and manning the gateway, they exactly have very limited clue what to do with the devices, they like SIM tools and others, what actually need to be done to really prevent the attack from happening or protect it immediately. At the same time, when we look at the consultants and the people who are coming in doing the red teaming effort with us to identify the vulnerability, when we ask them what exactly the way the security controls are going to work, they have very limited clue there. Because they know how to hack, but they don't know what the device can do. And what is required is probably to have a combination of both the skills, what we in Checkpoint term as purple skills, where the combination of red and blue is there. So that's another challenge which we have, we need to look at it from the point of view. Then when we look ahead, the hackers are collaborating faster than us. One vulnerability in the dark web, it immediately spreads to the multiple people, and we see the attack which started somewhere in Estonia or US immediately getting percolated all across the world, because the way the hackers are collaborating and the way they are transferring their technology to each other, whatever knowledge they have, the other side of the table is not that collaborative. Everybody has their own IP, they keep guard that IP, obviously there's a commercial interest, but then until we will not really collaborate with each other, whether it's vendor with a vendor or a customer and a vendor, whatever it is, it's important to understand whom we are fighting against. They are extremely fast and agile, and their DNA is very, very collaborative. And finally, if you see, look above, IoT is already happening in a big way, and a digital of everything is in front of us, which means that all those systems are common in the shop floor, which used to be completely disconnected from the IT network. Today, it is connecting to the top floor. So shop floor is already started connecting to the top floor, which means that executives are asking a lot of data from the shop floor with which they will do a business decision making. And with IoT coming in, they're all connecting to somewhere of IP interface, and that's where the connectivity or convergence of IT and OT is actually in front of us, and we need to look at very, very scrupulously today so that we do not get into the problem tomorrow. And that's what is the key issue today, what we want to highlight. Now, let's see what is the important ingredient of what is called Industry 4.0, smart factory, new age ICS system, whatever we want to name them. The first and foremost important thing is the integration. In this case, what happens is that a lot of legacy systems there. And there are a lot of challenges which is operational. For example, you cannot patch them because vendor doesn't allow to patch. They are running on very, very old technologies, which means that they are not really well versed with the new kind of an attacks. And then the most important thing here is that the lifespan of these, once you invest in something, it is not like an IT of 3 years or 5-year time frame. Once you invest in a factory on some applications and some machines, it's going to be for 20 years, 15 years. So time frame of the lifespan is very, very high. So in typical IT parlance, if you see 3 years, 5 years, the system get refreshed. But that is not the same. So when you invest in something, when you design some application, you need to look at that time frame of 20 years where you will be able to support, and also any kind of new vulnerabilities and attacks are coming, we will be able to handle it. Obviously cyber security is the key aspect there, because whenever when we are meeting the OT people, when we are meeting ICS experts, the only reason why they are probably still contesting the connectivity, if there is any chance available, it is because of cyber security concern, because they feel that it is once connected, the things will be out of their control. So that's another point. And then obviously big data is playing a big role for analytics, and for bringing analytics on top of it with all the shop floor thing which is happening. And then finally, obviously business transformation. So these are the ingredient in the aspect of Industry 4.0. There are two types of integration which is happening. One is vertical integration, wherein you are connecting manufacturing line to the top floor, which is executive way, with all kind of back office operation getting in, quality control, everything getting integrated. And then the other side of integration is horizontal integration, where we are talking about the supply chain getting integrated. So which is beyond your network also, things are getting connected. So this is another way to look at it, that the two level of integration on the soft floor which is happening, which is changing the dynamics totally, and we must be taking cyber security very, very seriously there. Now let's look at, because of these integrations, cyber security is becoming a key point. And if I have to give you a complete look of how it looks overall, so there are a level 0, 1 and 2 layer, which is basically layer of PLCs and layer of these machines which is getting connected. And then level 2 is the application which is very, very closely working with those PLCs and giving you those connections in terms of what need to be controlled, what parameter need to be done. And finally, level 4 is the level which you are connecting, your converging OT into IT, or taking IoT into the internet. So these are the basic layers, and there are various amount of protocols, application working on there. We need to be able to really look at each layer separately and see what need to be done in case of cyber security there. So in nutshell, if you see the solution framework, it is as similar as any other thing, that first we need to be ready with playbooks, with things like that. We need to know our assets. We need to prevent the attack from happening. If there is still something going through, we have to respond to those attacks and then immediately recover. And in case of Industry 4.0 or ICS, it's important to understand recovery can be really, really tough job, because it's not the logical. Maybe machine itself gets over it. Now let's see what is that we should do. So I've just put a very broad level understanding of the first and foremost thing is we have to do an asset identification. Invariably, whenever we have visited any organization and audited their shop or their factory or their power grids, we have figured out that people are not even aware what assets are connected. So that's the first thing, and they are surprised to see the level of connection. For example, we have done one audit, and we found that there is a couple of machines continuously trying to reach some public IP, which was secured because there was no internet connection given. But assuming that now the internet connection will there, the connection will happen, and this IP was pre-coded by the application vendor to connect while developing, and then he forgot to remove that functionality out of it. Just imagine if somebody is scanning this traffic and if it's their internet, what could happen to that? So these are the small things which is very, very important. Then the other important part is micro-segmentation. So you saw that layered architecture, there has to be micro-segmentation to be done so that you have a relative amount of control between traffic flowing in between different segments, and you could do some segments. So that is the classic learning from the previous IT era. Then the anomaly detection. Good thing or good news is that the traffic pattern doesn't change too much in these factories or power grids or industrial control system. They are typically the same way. So it's easy to catch anomaly once you know what is your baseline. And that can be a big boost for anyone. In fact, NIST, who is a global organization under the Department of Commerce of US, have already released a white paper that why anomaly detection is the key component which we must all have in our industrial control systems. Finally, obviously, once the incident happened, you have to respond and remediate. How do you really bring the automation and orchestration into picture and use it? And finally, with the advent of IoT, what is that nano chips which is going everywhere? How do you secure them? Because you really can't have too much. So you have to have security controls which will have microservices running along with small chips and give you the nano integrated security operations for the IoT. And finally, we all know that evolving endpoints. Now, endpoints is no more just, in this case, it is Storian, engineering workstation, embedded devices, control system communication. All of these are actually evolving endpoints which need to be looked at in future as we move on. Finally, so if I have to leave you with one final architecture, this is basically how the what we say industrial control system SOC or OT SOC should look like, in which you have one side of telemetry giving industrial data, native inputs, then modular input from serial interface, other APIs, which is coming into the central system, and then you are really getting alert and anomaly detection behavior. So that's how the framework will look like in a complete solution, this thing. So this is what I had today to cover. Basically, the context which I want to leave with you is that industrial control systems, OT, with smart city coming in, smart grids coming in our country, it is not something which we can ignore for long when it comes to cybersecurity. It's important, the stakeholders sitting here who are drafting the RFPs, who are drafting the your project reports, keep cybersecurity as key and think from the ICS perspective, not from IT perspective. Because whatever I have gone through the RFPs in smart cities, the security component is primarily all the learning from the IT era. They have all advanced controls, but keeping only IT in mind. But these systems, when they will actually roll out 2 years, 3 years from now, when we will actually see the benefit of smart city, the first challenge which we will have in our front, in front of us is the cybersecurity, because it is not natively designed. It is still coming from the IT learning, not from the OT learning. And that's what I want to leave with you. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker for the keynote session on securing information in the digital age is Mr. Avinash Prasad, Global Head Managed Security Services at Tata Communications Limited. And I'm now going to request Mr. Avinash Prasad to kindly make his presentation. Please welcome him with a round of applause.
So it's been an exciting 1.5 days for me. I've been here since yesterday. Yesterday was much more of the workshopish kind of sessions that we had, and we talked through various things with more hands-on activities being done. We also did one of our own. And today we wanted to kind of abstract the messages and talk to you a little bit about, kind of taking it towards trends, some key thoughts, and where things are going. Many of you would know about Tata Communications or would have come across us in some way or the other. Given that we are in many ways kind of the highway to the internet for our nation and actually for many continents globally, we are also playing in this whole journey. Digital, I'll call it DX, we'll all keep it simple, DX for short. I also have a confession to make that while we look at digital today, there's a personal aspect of it as we're kind of living out digital lives. Some of us are unwilling digital citizens, and then of course there's a business aspect of it. So I am a believer that digital does tend to dehumanize as we get into these so-called digital life aspects. But for businesses, I think it's really a big thing. And why is it a big thing? It's a big thing, I think, because of the fact that it's all about benefit to the customer and value to the customer for all businesses. And of course, it's about the time and the speed to market, etc. So keeping that in mind, I think it's become it's being forced upon us, upon all businesses, to look at what we have in front of us, which is reshaping the way we work, which is the cloud. So, there's no denying that. But what does the move to the cloud mean? What have we seen? So I'll talk to you about some snippets of experience which we as a cloud service provider have to share with you. Big data and analytics. So we started this interesting project of collecting and streaming and real time and collecting some of our own network data for security purposes. And we were overwhelmed with, the various things that came our way in terms of, oh, you can't do this, and this is what will bring the system down, et cetera, et cetera. So while big data, on the face of it presents an opportunity, what you take out of it, how you interpret it, and how you make it happen. So it took us 3 months to stabilize our approach, and of course now we've got deriving very meaningful insights out of that. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Mobility, again, very interesting area, and we are seeing how things are playing out with the emergence of eSIMs, and how these can get embedded into objects, and gone are the days of limited coverage areas and all of that. And we have made some interesting investments in that also, which I'll briefly cover. The network. The network is no longer the network the way we saw it, and we are clearly seeing that. So what does that mean, again, for businesses? Of course, explosion of APIs means that everything is talking to everything, or at least that's the intent, and IoT. And the previous speaker before me also did talk about IoT and some of these things. However, the underlying message that I would like to point out to you is still security for the digital enterprise. In terms of, all of this, how does it attach itself to it? You could put it at the bottom, you could put it at the top, maybe you could put it all around. But the fact is, one has to think through the approach for security for the digital enterprise, which is really the crux of what I want to share with you today. And we skipped a slide, so we'll go back. So digital infrastructure provider. So I said that, in some ways we are the highway to the internet for our nation. But actually speaking, the way we see it is, the play is more of a digital infrastructure provider, and it's more about sharing some of our experiences in that area with you. So I talked about the fact that really the business expediency of doing this is why. Why? So it's all about borderless growth, and we understand that it's about productivity and efficiency. Could be employees, could be assets, how best do you derive out of what you have? So do more for less. A customer experience and engagement, that's a huge driver today. And of course, managing business risk. That's the way we see it. That all of these really tie into how, a digital services can be adopted and imbibed by organizations, by our customers. And this is supported through, things like cloud. We looked at cloud. Business collaboration is a big thing, being anywhere, anytime, and being able to collaborate. That's something that really is changing our lives. We talked about network getting virtualized, mobility, media, content. Content is king today, and all of that getting tied together through managed security. That's kind of the harmony that we are seeking in this digital infrastructure space. This is a very fast clicker, sorry. So in terms of, therefore, coming back to the whole point of security, right? And wanting to bring out some specific use cases for you, something that you can relate to and visualize that what does it really mean when you're talking about so many things and you zoom into, specifically on security. What I'll do is, I'll take some examples to bring out the fact that how do you stitch, security for our existing traditional platforms, but aligning to digital platforms now, and being able to flex or scale that. And then more importantly, it's all about protecting yourself against what may come at you, which is all about threat analysis and visibility. And finally, cyber defense across boundaries, because we all know that most of the time the adversaries today don't live within the geophysical, political boundaries that we are part of, and could be anywhere. So here is the first snippet, an important one at that, because cloud, I think, is a bigger reality for all of us in this room. Yes, some of us are looking at software-defined WAN, there's the IoT journey which might be going on, but cloud is reality. Cloud is here and now. So the way we look at it, and when we took a step back, saying that, okay, we provide security services to you, we provide cloud services to you as well. So how do we really bring it together? So there are 3 stages of that life cycle, which you see here, which is before the move to the cloud. And you could look at it in any context. That maybe I'm doing one slice of the cloud, but maybe consumer services is something that we are not doing. Maybe we are doing SaaS, but we are not doing IaaS or whatever else. So there's a move before the move to the cloud, and then during the thing, and then of course when you're already in the cloud. So what it's very important to have is the way the CISO or the security leaders today are aligning, or should be aligning, in our minds to this is in terms of understanding the cloud strategy roadmap of those different layers, whether it's multi-cloud, private, public, IaaS, SaaS, PaaS, all the different variants, and then tying it back to a security architecture that is understood and agreed across the organization with the infrastructure leaders, with the other key stakeholders in that. And then carrying out a reasonable security assessment of the cloud service provider, the CSP, because a shared responsibility model is a big thing now in the cloud. Oh, it's a shared responsibility. Whose data is it? Of course, the enterprise, if you are the owner of the data, if it's your customer's data, then you are the processor. Then all the liabilities and obligations are yours. So doing that, and then of course the advisory layer throughout the cloud migration. Moving on is establishing that whole RACI, the shared responsibility model, if you will, of while moving to the cloud against different environments, and especially a multi-cloud environment. And then managing. So while security controls can be deployed, let's say you could go to the marketplace and buy something of AWS or Azure or any other solutions, but the management of that, the uniform operationalization of that is still very much the enterprise responsibility. So how is that happening, and how do we go about doing that? Some examples of that would be centralized vulnerability management, DevSecOps. So Mr. Premji, who was speaking earlier in the morning, also talked about the fact that this is one of the big things which is coming up because of the cloud journey, that how security is getting embedded into DevOps, and therefore DevSecOps, so that while Agile's builds and testing and rollout is happening, security is very much part of that in terms of threat modeling, to testing, to code reviews, whatever else needs to be there. And of course, access and managing identities is a critical part of it. And once you're already in the cloud, what is the methodology or what is the mechanism to carry out security assessments, looking at specific solutions? And then when we know that today one of the leading ones is CASB, which gives customer a lot of visibility, control and access to the cloud environments, and of course data, movement of data. So which is the cloud access security broker, that solution. And of course, being able to bridge the existing world versus the new cloud world, which is cloud workload protection, having a uniform configuration policy and vulnerability management posture there. And of course, now moving to more and more container-based and serverless security. So as we look at different use cases of what containers can do for us, security is coming up in a big way. And that's something that we are experimenting a lot. So that's a snippet of our experience on the cloud journey. Talking about networks, and this is something, there's quite a revolution happening out there. We are seeing it, and there are different layers that you can see here, the classical access layer, MPLS, Internet WAN, et cetera, that we've had for some time. And from there, how the distribution happens, and then finally the orchestration, the service management part of it. And one of the key models that you can see that we are calling out over here is BYON, which means that what you want, the QoS that you want out of your network, the way you want to manage your traffic and orchestration of the same, could be with an underlay of customers' network that they're getting from different regions. So bring your own network is today becoming more and more a reality. And the way it works is through the fact that there's the network function virtualization and the service that we run on top of that you see as the managed service over here, along with security. So what you see called out over here are some examples of that, like the secure internet access gateway, which is kind of pretty much the basic hardened layer that needs to be there to manage your traffic, manage what is communicating where, what kind of protocols, what ports are we talking about. And then on top of that is the additional services that you may want to have in terms of premium services of traffic inspection, in terms of filtering, et cetera, that you want to do. So how this is tying, security is tying into the software-defined network, this is a snippet of that. Another very interesting thing is mobile security. So I talked about mobility and the fact that today we are supporting customers, let's say, and I talked about the eSIM with an approach whereby let's say there are these forklift trucks which are moving all across the European Union, and you want to be able to communicate with that, and you want to have a sense of either equipment mobility or any issues that might be there, et cetera, and how you can embed a solution like the eSIM to be able to do that. Now, generally in terms of the context of smartphones, we are all aware of MDM. Oh, there's mobile device management. Okay, it gives me a secure container on my phone, and therefore maybe some apps are working. What we have realized though is the reality is that in a BYOD model, obviously you're doing a lot of other things with your phone. So even if you have a secure container, which you see here, let's say gives you access to certain enterprise assets, there's a whole lot of social media and other activity that you're doing, which you see here in terms of the internet traffic going to that as well. And then there could be various kinds of SaaS products, both enterprise as well as consumer, that you're accessing. With that, what does it do in terms of the kind of threats that could come? Unauthorized apps. Yesterday there was an interesting question asked in our session by a gentleman from HR, saying that, oh, these apps get put up on the App Store, but how do I know there isn't an issue there or vulnerability there? And actually, that's a real issue. So from that standpoint, what we believe is being in line with the traffic is the new approach to moving beyond MDM and just being on the device. And that's the kind of approach that we are taking, wherein what you see over here is an innovation project that we have run based on which it's much more about understanding the signaling, the content, the access that is happening, which would lead us to the fact that is there actually some device hijacking or some compromise which is happening or malware sitting over there. So this is another interesting view that we have of this whole matter of how to manage this access, which will continue to happen. And this, by the way, will extend, as you can see here, not just mobile, but IoT devices and other such devices also which communicate out to the internet. So that's another way of really looking at how to manage the challenge being posed by mobility in the DX world. And finally, in terms of how do you put it all together? So that single pane of glass is that you have to operationalize it through one cohesive approach, and that's the reality. I think the previous speaker also talked about IT, OT, the multiple layers that go into one common operations and threat management approach, which will really benefit your organization. So in this case also, whether it be security for a software-defined WAN, whether for the cloud, mobility, it's more important that through the orchestration layer that you see over here, one is able to, abstract and bring out the information from the cloud, relevant security events, whether it be DOS protection, SIEM, et cetera, so in terms of what you have. And then being able to manage it through different personas. And the customers also get to see their data, and they get to understand what's happening, so that you can do some of your own orchestration in a cloud kind of environment. Because your users will say that, listen, I want to do all this stuff on my own. So this has been kind of our learning in terms of, while looking at DX, while looking at real projects that customers are doing, how we can really integrate it into a cohesive approach, bring a common security thinking to it, and at the same time being able to operationalize it. Because one of the biggest learnings of the security world has been that, oh, I had the tool, oh, I did think of that, and yet we got breached. So that's what we are, here to help you with, and thank you for your time and attention. That's what I wanted to share with you today.
The next presentation is by Mr. Frederick Forsland, who is a director with Cloud and Data Center Erasure Solutions at Blanco Global, and he's going to be talking to us about Data Privacy Act in India and data erasure best practices. I'll request Mr. Frederick to now kindly join us on the stage and make his presentation. Please put your hands together and welcome him.
Hi everyone, it is great to be here again. Last year was my first time. I realized that I have missed at least 8 good sessions previously. As you can hear, I am not from India, so you have to bear with me and my Scandinavian accent today. In Swedish, my name is Fredrik Forslund. Mera namn Fredrik. So I hope you can understand me properly. I want to talk to you how data erasure is part of the gateway to achieving data privacy. This is a picture from my hometown, the capital of Sweden, Stockholm. And I'm proud to say that Sweden was actually the first country in the world to have a Data Privacy Act in place. And that act has been around for as long as I have been around in this industry, which is 20 years. I think the clicker needs to be potentially updated. Here we go. So, Last year when I was here, I told you that I was a very lucky man. Do you remember why I'm so lucky? Because my wife is Indian. She comes from a family from the Punjab in Amritsar. And I know that she would not be happy with me putting a picture up on the screen. But I'm glad it's not on the wide screen at least, because then it would have been really problematic for me to come home. When it comes to other important people in India, this is not a family member. But do you recognize this very important man? Yes? His Honor and Justice, Shri, I need to get the pronunciation correct. Shri Krishna, is that correct? Yes, very good. And you have been following his very important work and know that we have the Personal Data Protection Bill coming into place. And this is available to read, and we've heard during the whole morning how important this is, both in a global context as well as in your local context here in India. I encourage all of you to download and read, because this will come into place sometime soon. And we have heard that this is part of also a global trend. And we need to understand that this global trend includes, of course, the GDPR. That has been a trigger event. There are many similarities. We know that we will have data protection officer. We know that we will have to report any kind of data breach. So it's a general increase in awareness. But also interesting to see is that the world's 5th largest economy, the state of California, has also taken a leap and is about to adapt an increased data protection law for personal data and individuals. So this is definitely a global trend that we need to understand and make into a competitive advantage. If we start looking at the India Privacy Act and start reading it carefully, paragraph 34 will bring out a very important aspect for you. It's about the record keeping, things that you have to have under control, well documented. And if we read paragraph A there, important operations in the data life cycle. Remember this, data life cycle, including collection, transfer, and erasure of personal data. So we have to be able to follow the data throughout its life cycle and understanding when to apply data end of life, making sure that that data cannot be a potential risk and leak out and create a breach. So we actually did a poll yesterday, and 15 organizations have helped giving some answers here. If you're actively destroying data as part of IT security policy today. And as we can see, most of the organizations that gave their answers, and this is pretty much in line with what I see around the world. Most of you have some sort of process in place. A few of you are still destroying IT assets instead of using other processes. But most of you have the mindset of destroying the data, but reusing the asset, which is definitely critical and best practice. Some outsource and leave it to other service providers. So this is a big service providing opportunity. And some are still struggling with this and have to adopt a policy. But this is interesting to see. And a few of the key things that I want you to bring with you from this keynote would be the word hygiene. Not your personal hygiene. Remember hygiene in the aspect of asset life cycle and what we read in the Privacy Act, the data lifecycle. Any kind of asset or equipment leaving your organization cannot leave with data. That data must also be tracked so you can decide when it should no longer be around. When we talk about these policies and today's modern IT environment, almost all of you represent one way or another global organizations. You have to look at global deployment. We're working with a customer right now out of India. It's a global bank, but all their IT operations are handled from India. Well done. And we're rolling out to 68 countries simultaneously the policies and the processes to achieve both the asset lifecycle data end of life as well as the data lifecycle end of life. Another thing that you need to bear with you, in today's environment, you want to do as much as possible remotely. You do not have to force people to be close to where it happens. And an example of remote erasure could be, for example, that you have someone in Bengaluru connecting to New York, customer infrastructure, and then performing an erasure, getting an erasure certificate back at the end. And the way to do it is simply to use the interface, select that specific machine. You will trigger the erasure to start. Everything will happen remotely. And at the end, that audit trail is absolute key. Because when you need to document and show that you are compliant to your Privacy Act at home or other industry legislation, these are the things that are absolutely important to be able to manage correctly and be able to show internally as well as externally. So, since we are in the mecca of IT outsourcing, I believe that this is part of a great service opportunity to wider service the global IT community with good security services out of India. This is how it used to be done. This is not a very remote process. But we still have to realize that around the world, physical destruction of IT equipment is still very frequent. And you have to remember, this is physical destruction of data, yes, so one mission accomplished, but also you are destroying big values. The CFOs of the world are not happy with physical destruction processes. You are also destroying any opportunity to have an efficient process that can be automated and well documented. So let's try to move away from physical destruction. Do you know what the most common way to physically destroy data is? It's not the sledgehammer, it's a bit too heavy, but this machine. Have you ever seen this machine? Some of you nod. It's a degausser, very heavy. I would not lift it. It is a huge magnet. It will demagnetize any kind of magnetic storage. So it works with HDDs. However, it destroys the HDD. You cannot use it again. And it is hard to have a well-documented process. And it's definitely not a remote process. What's this? Yes, an SSD. If you put an SSD in a degausser, what happens? Nothing. No data is destroyed. So, with the influx of SSD technology, you have to make sure that you have an up-to-date best practice process in place and can handle SSD erasure, which is today a common factor around the world. You have millions of SSDs securely being erased with software. When we started 20 years ago, these were the kind of units, IBM-compatible computers that we were erasing. And this was the only software. Some of you haven't even seen a floppy disk. That's because you're young and have the future ahead of you. I'm in the midlife crisis, which means me and the floppy disk go like this. For some reason, the clicker is not really cooperating. All right, he woke up. So, today, a few final words. You have to seek process efficiency. This is a picture from one customer site where you are processing tens of thousands of assets very quickly, very organized. If you have smartphones, same thing. So there is an optimized process for any asset. When you're inside a data center and you might be challenged with a big tech refresh, we're changing 1,000 servers overnight. Do you want to go up to those servers, physically take out all the hard drives and process the hard drives individually? No. But you can connect all of those servers together and remotely distribute an erasure process, making sure these assets are ready for a secure decommission. You have to remember, in general in the security industry, to look for certified solutions. It goes within all different aspects of security. Certification is key. When you show why you have chosen a specific solution, your internal people will for sure come from compliance and ask, show me why this is your preferred vendor. Certification is key. And finally, some of you have seen that you have an old classic storage technology on your tables, pen, and also with a related targeted erasure process. Remember that for any kind of erasure target you will have, there will be an optimized erasure process. And when we get really advanced, that process will even be integrated technology, so you can have everything happen automatically in your life cycles. With those few words, I hope that you have been able to take away a few key insights around how data erasure is one part of your ambition to reach good data privacy practices. Come and see us at booth number 5, right outside. I have a couple of colleagues here. Anurag, Chimney, are you here? So can we please give a warm hand for Anurag, who has just become a father to his first child. We were a bit worried because the delivery time was scheduled to be basically now during the conference. But his daughter had a good courtesy to come early so that we could attend this 10-year celebration. And to celebrate, I always bring a gift. And since it's Christmas time, last year I had brought a specific Swedish Christmas cookie, ginger thins. It's absolutely delicate. However, I only brought one big box, so we ran out. And when I came home and I told my wife, I came to India with something to eat and I ran out, she was very upset with me. You should never offer anything if you risk to run out of food. So this time I have brought 3 different varieties in 3 even bigger boxes. So please come and join us for some Swedish Christmas celebrations. And with that I say thank you very much. Tack så mycket. Shukriya.
The next keynote speaker is Mr. Sudeep Das, Technical Sales Leader at IBM Security Systems ISA, and he's going to help you jazz up your SOC because he's going to be talking on Rock Your SOC. So please put your hands together and welcome him.
Good afternoon, everybody. Title of my speech today is Rock the SOC. I hope I'm not going to rock anything, but ask you to, my slide please. I would like you to imagine with me a certain scenario. Imagine you are on an operating table. It's a life and death scenario for you. You are on an operating table. You have 5 of the best surgeons operating on you, and you are in one of the best hospitals in the city. Imagine after that, you actually don't have 5 surgeons with you, you actually have just 2 of them. And these 2 surgeons, at this point of time, have been blindfolded. They can't see anything. They just don't know what is going on through the eyes. And it's not just you they are going to be operating on, but there's going to be hundreds and thousands of patients like you who these 2 surgeons are operating on at this point of time. And at that same point of time, the hospital is actually moving away. They're shifting all the hospital equipments away from that institute. Right? And there's some more. At that same point of time, let us go ahead and introduce a superbug into the hospital, something that you have never seen earlier. And now you have a superbug, you are in a life and death situation, hundreds and thousands of patients, and the hospital is not there anymore. Now, why am I saying all of these things? This is what your security operations centers today are operating on. You do not have enough people with you. We heard our predecessors talk about that we just don't have enough number of resources, human resources with us. There will be paucity of that, so there are 2 surgeons instead of 5. And there is blindfolded. Basically, every traffic that is on the thing is all encrypted. You will not be able to see the traffic that is going on. Most of the traffic is going to be encrypted from end to end. So it's just that you will be blind to that traffic. You wouldn't know what is inside going on in there. Plus, we are seeing, and as Avinash talked about, there's a whole bunch of new things that are coming in. A whole bunch of IoT devices, ICS devices, and they are unpatched, they are vulnerable. I mean, our existing systems are also unpatched and vulnerable. Now you have got more of them to work on. I'm not going to go through the numbers. These are numbers which, there are predictions, but you know that there are these going to be devices which are going to come in on which you have to monitor, right? And of course, the next thing is that you will move to the cloud. Your data is going to be sitting in the cloud. Your apps are going to run from the cloud. So there is going to be the things that you need to protect is going to be sitting somewhere else, right? So in all of these, you can imagine. So, and of course, as the threats are increasing, there's a number which says that every 40 seconds, there's going to be 14 seconds, there's going to be new ransomware which is going to come and hit you, a superbug kind of stuff. Right? So if you think that why am I really comparing a hospital scenario to the security operations center that you are running today? But we just heard smart cities, smart grids. Our lives are going to depend upon these computers and this technology. And the people who have been entrusted to protect us are blindfolded, are outnumbered, are overwhelmed, are distracted. And that's where we are at. That is how our security operations centers are running today. Right? So the thing I feel really, really afraid is at some point of time in the very near future, computers are going to drive us to our office and they're going to drive our children to the school. So our life depends upon it, and our security operations center is critical to that monitoring that we have embarked upon. Right? So This is quite a real and quite a, what is that called, situation that we are in today, and hence it is important for us to take an action now. Now, it's going to be a journey. It's a vision that we have at IBM where we are trying what could be done differently, how we can look upon our Security Operations Center as the epicenter of our life. And that is where we have thought about a particular vision, which is what I'm going to take you through a few slides around that particular vision that we have, which we call as SecOps.next. Now, the name is not important. The vision or the journey that I'm going to talk about is what we are envisaging. Sorry. So, this is where we are talking about, okay, slide slows. So, this is where we are going to talk about how we are going to go ahead and think about our security not as on-prem, but it is going to be inherently designed for the multi-cloud environment, right? So, we have to make sure that the decisions that we make today needs to be ready for infrastructure as a service or a platform or a service or a software as a service scenario. And they're going to be able to see into all of these environments as much as they are seeing the on-prem environment, right? And they're going to see this. So, we have talked about this pervasive encryption which is out there. So, you'll not be able to see it as they're talking. But then we also know that our IT vendors, other providers, and our endpoint systems, they are building in so many sensors out there. A plethora of sensors which can give us information right from the device from where things are happening, right? So, we go ahead and look into the systems that are making up this environment, and those are these systems which are going to give us the necessary level of information that we need to be able to see what is going on. And as we see this data, we're going to integrate this data and talk to each other. It's not going to be just a security data or an operations data or a configuration data or whatever data. Data is data. Every data has a security relevance, and that is what is going to be integrated into this system, which allows me to make sense or security sense of that particular system. So, once I have integrated the data into our analytics platform, we go ahead and get the insight. Now, once we get the insight, we need to be able to automate things that we are doing again and again and again. In pretty, almost all Security Operations Center, at least 50% of tasks that L1, L2, L3 are doing are repetitive. And we need to be able to automate that. We need to be able to automate and have manual intervention as and when required. And this automation needs to be powered by systems like AI systems, which will see a thing that is being repeated and go ahead and learn and then do it itself. It's not just going to automate what I'm doing, but it is also automate the security levels, the configurations, the stuff that we need to be able to what we are doing again and again, go ahead and automate those routine tasks. And automation is not going to be sufficient. We need to be also able to orchestrate the response that is going to happen across these different systems, right? So, the response is going to happen across systems, across people, across processes, across departments, governments, regulation. There's a whole bunch of those data points across which a response has to be orchestrated against, right? So, once we have orchestrated that particular data and we now know what to do and we are seeing what is happening, based upon this information, our AI system should be able to predict the early indicators of compromise and tell that this is what you should be expecting, and hence take corrective actions before the data actually leaves your organization or the identity is actually breached. So, look out, take help of the AI technologies to be able to predict what is going to happen and minimize the particular threats and risks. This is the SOC system. Now, the SOC system in many places, and this is a common thing that we are grappling with, we're not able to extend the SOC system to all the IT infrastructure across the organization. So, we have to be able to extend these systems or this Security Operations Center to all the systems within the IT infrastructure. So, we need to be able to talk to all of them and be able to extend to third-party integrations through the APIs, through the REST calls, so on and so forth. There's a whole bunch of ideas and platforms around this extension can happen. And as we extend, we need to be able to augment. Augmentation is where we talked about, you remember we talked about those 2 surgeons. And we're going to have those 2 surgeons on site. But there is also a whole bunch of those experts out there with vendors, with industry, who we should be able to call on demand, who should be able to help us when there is actually a data breach, who should be able to come in and help tackle a particular situation much better than what our own people could be doing. We cannot be sitting here and doing 24/7 operations. We should be able to call upon these experts at that point of time, at the middle of night, and take care. Right? And as we do this, all of these will have to be able to use the facility that cloud is providing us to be able to deploy faster, and of course try and buy. I mean, we don't really need to, we need to go into that mode in which we are really paying for what we are using, right? So these services needs to be provided from the cloud, should be able to scale as I scale, not go ahead and make a capex investment and then think about it, how it is depreciating. It should not be in that manner. And so we go ahead and scale as your business grows. Right? So that's what is the vision that we have. And of course, the last part, which is quite an interesting thing that we have started working on, is that we know the new generation likes talking to Alexa, talking to Siri. Shouldn't we be able to talk to our security tools and tell them what is to be done? Right? So we are working on that mode of interaction where mobile and voice interaction will help us communicate better and use these systems better. Right? This is a journey, this is a vision that we have, and there's a lot of activities that needs to be done on this. A lot of it is already in place, but then this is a journey on which we really think that is a way to tackle the 2020 problem that we just described earlier. Right? Well, I'm going to take a few minutes to just go ahead and show you what we have already done. The journey has already begun within the IBM system and our partners, and few of the things that I'm going to take you through, which I have around another 2.5 minutes. So what we have gone ahead and done is this screenshot. It's not very visible from there, right? Okay, so this is where we're talking about data or the insight that we have built for all the cloud deployments that you could be using within your organization, what we normally call as the shadow IT or actual migration to the cloud. So in a single pane of glass, take out all the information that I need to know for my operations on the cloud. Now I've got my users out there, I've got my applications out there, I've got my activities that are going on out there. So the Cloud Insight application helps me plug into all the different systems and give me a real-time view of what is going on across all my cloud deployments. And it is also going to help me find out which are my outliers, use the threat intelligence information to give a proper picture of what is going on across all of these systems. And it's not just going to be the activities that we are going to talk about. It's not just the activities, but the configuration that we have put in out there, the policies that we have put. So when we combine the configuration data, the activity data, the user data, the threat risk posture data, etc., it gives me a more holistic picture of what is going on, what is that I need to be worried about in a single pane of glass. So this is the Cloud Insight thing that helps us see when the hospital is being moved away from underneath the surgeon's table. Right? The other thing that we are working quite closely on is around the users. As the users are doing things, can I use AI to get the behavioral aspect of that user and pop up who is the most risky user, deep dive into what that user is really doing, and provide a very granular picture of how this user is being risky and why the system is really asking me that I need to go ahead and look into this particular user. Right? So the behavioral aspects are taken up by both rules and AI engine to pop up why I should be worried about a particular user amongst the thousands of users who are within my organization. Right? So And this is where we could use our AI technologies to be able to look into more details about a particular scenario. I mean, we are talking about a needle within the needles, right, finding out. So, we could go ahead and deep dive into this particular user. What has she been doing? What is it that is making her so risky? And as we drill down, we could see that, okay, there is a particular file that she was accessing, there's a particular site that she had gone, and hence she needs to, she most probably is in a situation where she could be, part of an attack. And as we go deeper into this data, we could see that, okay, this particular file in question is also affecting somebody else who still has not become risky. Now, this is where I was talking about that predict what could have happened and hence let the system go ahead and increase the threat level for that particular thing, right? And of course, the other part which we said, the AI should be able to help me how to do things better. So, we have gone ahead and introduced what we call as a curator assistant, which helps me tell these are the applications, this is your threat scenario, hence these are the applications, these are the use cases, these are the logs that you should be enabling, these are the inefficiencies that is there in your system. Maybe this is place where you can look into to improve upon your whole system, right? So, that's use cases, what are the different threat scenarios that I'm handling and what needs more attention. So, the curator assistant helps you fine tune the system and find out avenues of improvement on your deployment, right? So, that's what I had to really talk about on the SecOps.next vision, a journey that I would really request all of us to actively contribute and take it forward. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we have one more presentation here. The next keynote is by Mr. Arun M. Kumar, Chairman and CEO of KPMG in India. And before I call upon Mr. Arun, we have a small audio visual that we'd like to request all of you to kindly take a look.
Good afternoon. It's with great pleasure and privilege that I'm here today. I want to applaud the Data Security Council of India and its distinguished CEO, Rama Vedashri, for organizing this landmark summit on cybersecurity. We at KPMG are proud of our long-standing association with the DSCI. We were, in fact, part of the first AISS 12 years ago. As we witness a string of increasingly sophisticated cyber attacks around the world, this summit has become even more topical and relevant. I'm very proud of KPMG's own cybersecurity practice. Many of my colleagues are here today amongst you. In fact, my colleague Akhilesh Tuteja, who's up here, is a co-leader of KPMG's global cybersecurity initiatives. As the CEO of a company here that often handles sensitive information, I am personally acutely aware of the immense security challenge ahead of us, one that we cannot afford to take lightly. Trust takes years to build, but only moments to destroy. Even the smallest of breaches can have severe repercussions. We have all seen data breaches batter the reputations and the market valuations of companies. It is vital that we not only protect against attacks, but remain prepared for the myriad threats we face. It's heartening to note that CEOs around the world are becoming vigilant of cyber threats. Cybersecurity has become widely accepted as a board-level topic, and senior executives have become more aware of its implications for meeting business goals and protecting brands. Most of the CEOs surveyed in KPMG's 2018 Global CEO Outlook recognized that the likelihood of their organizations being a victim of a cyber attack is a case of when, not if. About 59% of the CEOs considered protecting sensitive data as a personal responsibility. CEOs today need to have contingencies in place rather than focusing on a protection-only approach to cyber attacks. Large global cyber incidents have laid bare the need for adequate preparation, incident response processes, and recovery mechanisms. Several high-profile incidents in the past year have turned cyber into a universal threat across industries beyond the traditional high-risk sectors such as banking and technology. While the threat may be universal, the approach to the threats has to be industry-specific, and this is also a big challenge for CEOs. For instance, in the banking sector, which has seen significant attacks, payment channels have been compromised, resulting in enormous losses. The approach needed to manage the risk in such cases is very different from what is required in other sectors, such as the energy sector, for instance, the attack on the power grid in Ukraine. Another aspect that needs deeper examination from a CEO perspective is the regulatory environment. There is now greater regulatory scrutiny on cybersecurity and on emerging disruptive technology risks. In October, the US Securities and Exchange Commission stated that public companies that fail to tighten their cybersecurity controls could be violating US federal law. Privacy regulations globally, including the European Union's GDPR, are imposing significant penalties on organizations with fines that can be as large as 4% of global turnover of the organizations. Such significant financial penalties can result in going concern issues. In India, too, regulators have increased their focus on such risks. The Uday Kotak Committee on Corporate Governance, on which I was honored to serve, suggested that the Risk Committee oversee cybersecurity explicitly as part of its portfolio. It is encouraging to see cybersecurity becoming an integral part of an organization's corporate governance framework. India, as you know, has witnessed rapid digital transformation. The government is leveraging the power of digital technologies to reimagine the entire ecosystem of public service delivery with an array of promising schemes such as the Jan Dhan Yojana, the Startup India, and Smart Cities. Now, this digital drive has a number of consequences. First, the generation of large volumes of data. India's internet data consumption has increased a massive 21 times over the past 3 years. It has appreciably improved convenience, but it comes along with more security risks. For example, the important point to remember is that as we have more convenience, we're also encountering higher risks. For example, proliferation of ATMs and net banking, the convenience of transactions has increased, but so has the risk. Apps like Uber, Paytm, Flipkart, Amazon also present similar trade-offs. So when you enter your payment information into these apps for recurrent use, it also means that that information can be exposed if it's not adequately protected. Second, the growth of real-time transactions. India is set to embrace m-commerce. By 2025, digital transactions in India are expected to hit the $1 trillion mark, where 4 out of every 5 transactions is expected to be completed digitally. As a result, the current 413 billion digital economy in India is expected to almost triple to 1.15 trillion. Third, faster real-time decision making. The Internet of Things and Industry 4.0 are providing real-time information leading to faster decision making. More devices are getting connected to the Internet, and it is estimated there will be 20.4 billion connected things worldwide by 2020. These include devices from common household appliances to large manufacturing facilities. Fourth, intelligent automation. Technologies are leading to reduced intervention from humans by bringing in their own intelligence, commonly in bots, which is revolutionizing businesses. In this context, just imagine the risk management that needs to be in place for all kinds of applications, from common usage applications to complex applications like power grid management. Things that we thought would only happen in movies could happen, sadly, in real life. So while digital technologies offer myriad and significant benefits, they do come with an array of risks across countries, organizations, businesses, and individuals. We need to be conscious of this digital risk. Are we ready to deal with the risks associated with the adoption of new age technologies, or will we only learn by making mistakes? Do we have enough thought going into securing these new age technologies? Are we equipped with the tools, technologies, and methods to address the ever-multiplying risks that we currently face? Through our conversations with CEOs and with risk management heads, we've drawn a couple of important conclusions. Over a third of companies cite risk management as one of the top barriers to commercializing technology to manage risk. Second, the regulatory environment has not kept pace with technology deployment. Last year, KPMG senior consultants in internal audit, risk, data science, and technology joined forces with a group of outside professionals to study the impact of emerging technologies and understand the preparedness of industry for related risks. What we found is that traditional risk and control frameworks can help, but are definitely not sufficient. Businesses urgently need to recognize this new risk profile and rethink their approach. And this must be done sooner rather than later, because one, when the need arises, and in all likelihood it will not be possible to scrape together the appropriate controls overnight. Nor can an organization suddenly develop the capability to manage the risks effectively or provide assurance. Hence, it is key for risk management practices to develop alongside the evolution and adoption of technologies. Second, systems and businesses can become so complex that they could exceed the comprehension capacity of the human mind. At KPMG, we believe it is important that organizations manage their risks along with the adoption of technologies, with a focus on the associated benefits. We have invested accordingly. We have developed and implemented a comprehensive risk framework for distributed ledger DLT blockchain-based solutions, which provides a comprehensive risk management approach integrated with corporate governance requirements. We believe in helping clients implement AI in a controlled fashion to help make responsible and transparent use of these powerful tools, ensuring that appropriate governance and assurance are in place. We have developed a digital insight protection platform that generates deep insights on the risk exposure of an organization emanating from digital technologies. We also assist businesses and risk professionals to harness the power of technologies to work on large volumes of data, to move away from reactive risk assessment to predictive risk management, to implement risk quantification models and explore actuarial sciences, to perform effective and consistent risk management through historical data analysis, and to use risk management to provide deep insights and bring much needed efficiencies. Some of our clients are moving swiftly in this area. One, in fact, is setting up one of the largest data lakes in the country purely for security analytics. My colleagues from KPMG are present here, as I mentioned, and they will be glad to provide more details on each of our solutions, so do reach out to them. Our national cybersecurity leader will conduct a session later today on digital risk management. It's called Digital Risk, the New Security Frontier, which will offer more insights into this puzzle. In conclusion, I'd like to share two simple yet effective techniques for managing digital risks. One, develop an agile risk management framework that places clients at the center. Second, establish the right governance model and drive the tone from the top. Responsible boards should view cyber as a top priority. I'd like to extend my gratitude to DSCI once again for this wonderful opportunity to discuss this critical issue. I try to share with you the perspectives that I see as a CEO of a company that is greatly interested in protecting its own information and helping our clients protect their information. Let me leave you with a little video that will tell you more about what we do. Thank you.
In today's dynamic world, full of opportunity and risks, with regulatory pressure escalating, business needs to become more agile, and management of risks needs to be more transparent. Despite investment in GRC solutions, risk and compliance practices in most organizations remain siloed, with fragmented and incomplete risk information, leaving businesses unequipped to make well-informed and timely risk decisions. What if you could achieve a step change in your risk management practices by using a scalable cloud solution, incorporating powerful data analytics and digitized early warnings, with a powerful workflow engine and personalized cockpits, using sound risk calculation models, benefiting from industry risk data, accessing KPMG's leading know-how and latest risk management practices? Well, now you can with the KPMG Digital Risk Platform. The platform enables organizations to better understand the risks to achieving their objectives and to factor clear and integrated risk insights into their strategic and operational business decisions. The KPMG Digital Risk Platform provides an expanding portfolio of applications, which include risk appetite solutions, including risk scenarios, the calculation of loss exceedance curves, and operational risk dashboards. Control and assurance solutions to manage and monitor the effectiveness of the control framework. Legal, regulatory, and tax solutions to define, monitor, and report compliance with defined requirements. Cybersecurity solutions to manage security in IT projects and capture cyber threats. And appraisal solutions to assess cyber maturity and business partner and vendor risks. The practices are offered as turnkey applications using scalable and secure cloud services, and the KPMG Digital Risk Platform can be implemented very quickly and will give you immediate benefits. Do you want to understand how the platform would make a step change in integrated risk management for your organization? Contact us for more information and a demo.